Good evening. I am not Bryan Hannegan. Actually, I am Jenna Weathered, VP of Member Communications, Member and Community Relations at Holy Cross Energy. And obviously, I'm not Bryan Hannegan. But I want to welcome you tonight to our Kilowatt Talks. I am the guest host this evening because Bryan couldn't be with us and we do miss him. But I will try to make this work. So tonight we have with us Bob Farmer, and he will be talking about broadband and fiber. This is our fourth Kilowatt Talks, and I really appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. We are also bringing back our Brats and Kilowatts. We had our first in the year of 2021 a couple of weeks ago over in Gypsum, and we had a great time. I'd like to thank those of you who were able to join us there. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Bob about broadband and all things fiber. So, Bob is the Vice Chancellor of Global Broadband Domination.
Thank you. Right, perfect. That was fun. What a great intro.
Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about broadband and specifically the Holy Cross Fiber project. So, Bob, can you tell us about the project? I want to hear all about this plan for global fiber domination.
Thank you, Jenna. First off, I just wanted to say, in absence of our glorious leader being here tonight, I couldn't think of a better person to be here with me asking these questions about broadband and who I can share broadband with. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So about our fiber project, fiber is such an exciting topic to me. So I'm probably going to get a little nervous, a little jittery at times. Because there's cameras all over the place. So I'm not used to this. But we started the fiber project or the broadband project really in October of 2018 at the request of one of our board directors. And we started evaluating what broadband efforts were being done locally. That moved into us doing a survey of our members. We also then looked at a feasibility study to see what would it take to do broadband within our service territory. And we also looked at it from our internal needs standpoint, because we do have some needs for reliable, fast connectivity. Mm-hmm. And so a project was born out of this where we would build fiber optic connectivity between our Avon office and substation over to Eagle, down to Cooley Mesa in Gypsum at our office substation there, over to our Glenwood headquarters here, and then to our Aspen substation. And the great thing about building this amount of fiber optic connectivity for us really is that it allows us to connect to devices in the field, our SCADA devices, and then, of course, that communication is important because of our fire settings. So the devices that we have in the field, we can control those. We can improve our data connectivity between our data centers, so between our Glenwood and Aspen office. And we have the capability of really building a really reliable communications network that will improve our data communications resiliency.
So you talked about the different types of devices. You mentioned fire and SCADA and some different things. Like when you talk about communicating, tell us kind of what that really means without IT talk.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll try to do my best. But really, you think about where we were as a co-op 10 years ago from a communications standpoint, and how much the industry has evolved and how much more devices we have out in the field. So we put devices out in the field where that we can communicate with, these call them smart devices for lack of a better term. And instead of having to send a crew out to make a change in the field, these devices can do it through communication. So in addition to that, we have our smart meters connected to our smart meters at people's homes, sending data back through their various connection points as well. So we have lots of data, lots of technology out there. And then, of course, we have our software in-house running for our outage management system. So as our members have a power outage, those smart meters will communicate back to our data center, and then they will tell us who's out of power.
So we might know somebody's out of power before they do.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, so in talking about these kind of things, like you hear broadband and you hear fiber, and I'm not sure that I'm clear on what the difference is between the two.
Yeah, that's a a difference that not many people know what it means. They hear broadband as a term used frequently in the media. We use it here a lot as well. But I like to think of it like ice cream. Like you like ice cream, right?
Of course you do.
Yeah, you look at me. I like ice cream. And you think about there's lots of different flavors of ice cream. Like I personally like vanilla. My son Declan likes chocolate.
Okay.
Right? So we have all these great flavors of ice cream, and broadband is really ice cream. And so within that, they have different flavors. You have cable, you have satellite, you have wireless, you have fiber, cellular as well.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Well, and kind of thinking about that, there are a lot of folks out there that are already providing broadband or fiber. So is there a reason that we're not just partnering with one of those existing providers?
Yeah, so we actually do buy some of our services through existing providers, and that's how our network is built today. But you think about what happened in Texas this year during February, and they had that outage due to the cold streak. And on day 3, I think it was, of that streak of the cold and the power being out and the conditions being bad, the communications network started to fail. So really, you think about it from our standpoint. We might not be as prone to the cold like Texas was, but we do have fires and we do have other things that happen. And I like to refer to those situations as dark sky days when things are going really bad. Like your power system is down because it's been burnt down, or there's some natural disaster that has happened. And I think about how important electricity is to our members and how much we want to make sure that we can get it functional quickly in those type of situations. So us building fiber is an effort to help build out a more resilient communications network. So we can continue to have data communications even when other service providers have stopped working.
Okay. So I understand why we're doing it for us, but we're a co-op, right? So we're owned by our members. So you mentioned that we might know about an outage before a member, but what's the real benefit for a member here for us undergoing this huge project?
Yeah, so that's another good question. And as I mentioned, we did a feasibility study and we did a survey of our members. And one of the questions I wanted to ask as part of that process is, could we potentially provide ubiquitous access to broadband to all of our members? And so we asked our members what they had today, and we found that 94% had internet already of some sort. But there was some data about their satisfaction levels of the services that they had today. And the two biggest things that we saw in that survey was there was a high cost. People were concerned about cost. And then they were concerned about the support that they were getting from the service providers themselves. So another question we asked was essentially, do you think Holy Cross should help try to solve the broadband problem? And we found that 90% of the members either strongly supported HCE helping to improve broadband, either by providing service directly or through partnerships, as long as we could do so without raising rates to our members.
Sure. That's super important. So if they told us that they wanted us to, but I don't think we are. So can you talk a little bit about the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so absolutely. The other part of that, we did the survey and then we looked at the feasibility of it. And the feasibility is really studying the financials. Is it financially feasible for us to provide broadband over every mile of line that we have in our system? And we hired a really good, reputable firm. They've done over 130 studies for other rural cooperatives. So they know our industry, they know about our lines. They have a data-driven model. So they took our GIS data, used the model they had, and they built out a model to show what would happen if we built it out over 4 years or if we built it out over 10 years. And what we did find is that over time, that the project would result with a positive net income, that it is economically feasible. But unfortunately, the other thing we saw is that it came at a substantial cost. That over the course of 4 years, it would cost $206 million, roughly, and over 10 years, it'd be $250 million. So you think about it, our plant, current electric plant, is worth somewhere in the $300 million range, and that's after 80 years of doing business. So essentially, we would have to take out a mortgage on our home, our electric plant, of almost the whole value of our home, to try to build something over a 4 or 10 year period. And you think about the great initiatives that we're doing with our 100 by 30, 100% clean energy by 2030 plan. And personally, I would have a hard time taking potential dollars away from any of the efforts that we're doing to make our power supply clean, right?
So just not very responsible.
Yeah, it's just not very responsible right now for us to do that.
Okay, that makes sense. So one of the things we've also talked about is working with partners, and so I'm curious as to how that works and how we use fiber to help our partners.
Yeah, I thought about having a prop today to help show you how fiber is made, and I completely forgot about it. I got tied up with other work, but essentially, we're putting a cable up on the poles, right, or in the ground. And within this cable, they have some protection layers around it, but in the center of it, they have these little fine strands of glass. And a single strand of glass is thinner than your hair. And so it's very expensive to put even just one strand of fiber up on the poles, because it takes a lot of labor, it takes a lot of design work, a lot of planning, a lot of our staff's time to do that. Mm-hmm. But to put a second strand or a third strand, because it's all in that same bundle, there's a low incremental cost to doing so.
Okay.
So one of the things that we could do to help broadband in our service territory without taking on the cost of deploying it to everybody is, as we're building for our own needs, we can actually build in a few extra strands of fiber. So we could take some of those strands of fiber and we can make them available to local governments, to service providers, and we can help get connectivity to some of the neighborhoods along our service territory as we go from Aspen to Glenwood, or Glenwood to Avon, or other areas.
So we get it to the neighborhood, and then, like my homeowners association, I know that actually I think they've reached out to you. So we get it to the neighborhood, and then they can take it from there, and that's affordable?
Yeah, so I mentioned the high cost of deploying broadband, and you think about it, it's relatively inexpensive, or it's, you think of a service provider, they're here to make money, they're going to look at a project and say, okay, does this make money for me, and does this make sense? Mm-hmm. And it makes sense for them when there's high density. You think of like Glenwood Springs, just right down the road here, they have a high density area, so they're moving forward and deploying broadband, and Town of Eagle's looking at it, and other areas where there's high density of homes in one section. But within our service territory, once you get outside of the towns, you might go a couple miles, and then there's a neighborhood, and there's a group of 10 homes, or there's a group of 20 homes, or maybe there's 100 homes. And so our service providers struggle with the cost of getting fiber from their office, from their central point to those neighborhoods, because there's cost to that. There's a high cost. So if we can help reduce that cost and get them to the edge of each of these neighborhoods, it makes it more feasible for them financially to then be able to deploy fiber to the homes in those neighborhoods.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so who are some of these folks that you've already started talking with?
Yeah, so we have 2 local service providers that we've talked to about coming onto our network, and I don't want to mention names until we have contracts in place and it's all right to do so. But one of the cool things is in our Aspen to Glenwood leg, which we're working on right now, there's potentially over 20 neighborhoods that we're out into fiber from using these partners. But we've had some really great partnerships with governments as well. One of the ones I want to highlight is with the town of Snowmass Village. They recently applied for a Department of Local Affairs grant, DOLA grant, to take fiber from Highway 82 off of our line that we're building into the town of Snowmass Village. And so we partnered with them on that. We had the capability of deploying that to our substation, the Snowmass substation, in that nice, beautiful building.
Love that one.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we had the opportunity to work with them together on this grant. And so they were awarded this grant. And without our participation, I believe that it would take them a few more years to be at this point where they are now. So they're ready a lot sooner. They're ready to do this project, able to do this project, but potentially they wouldn't be able to.
They're a great partner. We do a lot of cool stuff with them.
Another partner that we have is Town of Basalt. So we have a project with them in Pickett County. We're looking at another DOLA grant where we can extend from our line passing Basalt into the town, connecting Town Hall and potentially other buildings. Another DOLA grant, so lots of grant opportunities. Yeah. We're bringing a lot of state money, state broadband grant money into our valley because of this project. and able to work with Pickens County, City of Aspen, Project Thor, which is the Northwest Colorado Council of Governments, the great
Did
region.
you name that project?
You probably thought I did, but I did not actually.
Okay.
Nate Wallowitz with the Northwest Council was the one I think that came up with that name. But yeah,
Okay.
great name. Regional network they built out throughout the western part of the state, connecting local government entities. So by partnering with them, we can help provide them fiber to connect Glenwood Springs to Aspen, and then you can connect in towns like Basalt, potentially Carbondale down the road, a town of Snowmass Village along the way. So you, instead of having a service provider has a cut and service is down, we had that happen during COVID where all of our remote workers couldn't work for a period of time because our primary and secondary services were down.
Right.
Well, this potentially provides a different path for them to provide some resiliency to these towns that are served.
So just more redundancy. When you talk about the DOLA grants, I mean, I know everybody's talking right now about Biden's infrastructure bill. Like, do you think that this is like DOLA's it, or do you think there may be more money that we might be able to apply for to help different communities?
Yeah, we actually looked at some options for money when we did our feasibility study in 2019, and at that time there was the USDA Reconnect grant, so United States Department of Agriculture, and we found that for our service territory there was roughly $7 to $12 million available in grants, and on a $250 million bill, it doesn't quite help enough. But there is lots of money becoming available for broadband. The infrastructure bills all propose lots of money for broadband because we saw what happened during COVID. When we had remote workers working from home, we experienced this with some of our employees where they just didn't have sufficient connectivity to be able to stay connected to the VPN. This is not just a problem for us, though. It's a countrywide problem. So there is lots of grant opportunities for that. We're happy to work with partners whenever applicable to pursue some of these funds.
Okay, so could folks call you?
Definitely.
Okay. I just like putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that was definitely on the spot.
All right, back to the topic at hand. Are there other Broadway? No, unless you want to sing and dance.
I could sing and dance, but
I know you
I
could.
wouldn't want our viewers
We
to have to
don't
deal
want
with
to
that.
do that, no. So, are there other broadband activities that are currently underway or planned that we're not directing?
Yeah. So, of course, our service territory covers from Vail up to Aspen, and then over to the great folks in Battlement Mesa. And there's lots of different projects going on underway right now, or that are planned that we're not specifically directly a part of. Town of Eagle went through a process to do a study, and they've decided that it's feasible for them to provide fiber optic connectivity in their community. Glenwood's not in our service territory, but they're doing it just right down the road here, where they're providing fiber to every one of their homes. Comcast, they're not necessarily doing fiber to the home, but they're doing fiber to a node and then doing coax cable from there. They're improving service in Gypsum and Eagle, so something those folks have never had before. And then two really great grants opportunities that I've seen that I think are really, really cool projects that could potentially happen here because grants have been awarded to them. One is from Marble. Like the town of Marble hasn't had anything. And Visionary Communications applied for a state grant, and they were awarded money to provide fiber into Marble. So a really cool project. Another one that I'm excited about is the consultant that we hired to do our study. They worked with rural co-ops across the country, and they formed this thing called the Rural Electric Cooperative Consortium. And they actually applied for a grant up the frying pan. And they were awarded money to provide fiber for the frying pan. So two of these kind of extreme areas of our territory that are really hard to reach potentially have service within the next couple of years that we might not have even at our office necessarily, or homes near our office, right?
Well, and that's so important. I mean, we get calls all the time asking for help bringing broadband to those communities. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is not as exciting. But if, I am a member, but if my home happened to be in the area where you are doing these upgrades, like are you going to come rip up my lawn, Bob?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? If we build fiber from Glenwood, from our headquarters here to our Aspen office, and we have to connect to our poles and go underground in certain places along the way, it does impact some of our members. And so, we really are trying hard to make sure that the impact is as minimal as possible, and hopefully they won't see any impact at all. And one thing that we've done so far is if your home or your property is along that route, we've sent out letters kind of talking about the project, setting some expectations, providing you a contact number of who to contact here at Holy Cross, and as a first point of contact, just to let the members know that this is happening. The other thing there's a couple other things that's going to happen during this process. We're going to go out and hang out a door hanger. So a couple of days before the broadband work starts, a hanger will be placed on the door, letting members know, hey, within 2 days or during this time frame, we're going to be accessing your property, the Holy Cross easement, and our right of way to put fiber up. Prior to that happening, our Holy Cross crews are going to go out to do electrical work, and then what they're doing is making the system ready to have fiber placed on the poles, because there's some work that has to happen from the electric side, from a spacing to make sure everything's safe, that we can put it up there safely for our members.
And so do we have folks out there doing make-ready work now?
Yep, we have Holy Cross crews have gone out and do make-ready work. We've had some tree crews go out and do some tree work just to make sure that the right-of-ways are clear, that there's no issues there. We have hired a contractor named Bonfire to do the underground and aerial work for us. They've started on the underground work, so they're using a boring machine and doing some trenching to prepare conduit for us to put fiber into. And then we haven't started aerial work yet.
So are we on track? I mean, this is a 5-year plan? So how's it going?
So 5-year plan was the initial thought. We're trying to squeeze it into a little bit shorter time frame, budget allowing, right? And, of course, 2020 has been tough, I think, for everyone who needs materials. And we've had some delays in our project from the start of our project just because materials haven't arrived. Things that we were expecting at a certain date didn't show up. Contact the manufacturer, they're delayed. So we are having some delays due to material concerns. But I think that's just kind of the given of the industry right now. To give you an example of how we tried to plan for this, we knew that there would be delays in fiber optic cable. So we actually ordered our fiber optic cable for this project last October.
Wow.
So almost a year ago, to make sure we had fiber. And it arrived, I think, April or May. So we had other parts that we thought were ready in stock. They were when we looked in the past. Unfortunately, the situation with manufacturing has happened where things have gotten a little bit longer lead times, and that has led to some parts not being available when we thought they were and taking a little bit longer to get here.
Not parts that somebody might have in their garage and want to give us?
Yeah, I highly doubt it that they would have this particular component. We call it a dead end. It helps. Yeah, I didn't want to say I hope our members don't have any dead ends in their garage, but that.
Oh, we're so not going to be allowed to do this again. All right. So those were kind of the questions I wanted to ask you. And so now I thought we would open it up. And any of you out there viewing right now, we'd love to get your questions. So you can type them in and we will try to answer them. Actually, we already have one. Let's see. I heard you say that we were starting in the Roaring Fork Valley. Where are we going next?
Yeah, so we were starting in the Roaring Fork Valley, going from our Glenwood headquarters to our Aspen office. That's our phase 1. And then for phase 2, we're actually going to start in Avon at our Avon office and work back towards Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So will we go past Avon, or we just truly go to our building there in the substation?
It'll be our building in our substation at Avon. When we looked at this, we actually looked at all of our sites and all of our communication devices that we had in the field. We prioritized them based on the impact to our system. And so our 5-year plan is really just for our priority 1 assets.
Okay.
And priority 2 and priority 3 assets, which takes us towards Vail and other locations, potentially could be done in future phases or years of this project.
Okay, cool. Well, and thinking about Eagle to Glenwood and the rain that we've had today, like, are there special worries about going through the canyon and doing this?
Yeah, we actually plan on not going through the canyon.
Okay.
Yeah, so
How's that work?
and that's one of the concerns about resiliency, right? We had the rock slides that happened in the canyon,
Yeah.
and the fiber that was in the canyon got damaged. So
Okay.
we actually have a pathway over to gypsum that doesn't go through the Glenwood Canyon, and our plan is to take that path from Glenwood up kind of over Cottonwood Pass-ish
Okay.
area, and then back into the gypsum area.
Look
And
how smart you
over
are.
to Eagle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Typical number of stands for deployment.
Strands.
Strands.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't read.
I was wondering, like, are these like hunting stands or bicycle stands? No, fiber strands. So that's
Fiber
actually a really good
strands.
question. So when we deploy fiber, we have to think about how many fiber strands do we want for our own use, and how many might we have for future use.
Okay.
And then we're adding a little bit extra on top of that. So as we build out from Aspen all the way over to Avon, that segment of the network is going to be at least, or it will be 144 strands.
Okay. And each strand carries a certain amount of information, or is able to carry a certain amount of information?
It certainly is 100 gigs plus, depending on the type of electronics you put on it. When we light up between our Glenwood and Aspen offices, we'll have 40 gigs of connectivity off just one strand.
So that's what's giving us room to be able to help other folks.
Yeah, we'll have a certain amount of strands. They can lease these strands and use it with whatever electronics they desire.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, let's see. It looks like we've got another question. How will someone know when we're about to be on their property to
Yep.
work on this?
So good question. We've had some, when we sent out the letter, we had an invite to call. I have the number here. It was 970-947-5418. It's your great community relations team, specifically Haley and Jeanette have been answering the phones and done a great job. So people who have specific concerns can call us, and we've created a map for our contractors to say that when you hit this property, you might want to contact them because they have dogs or they have horses or they have some access concern. But generally, if you didn't call in, we're generally going to be out 2 days ahead of work, and we're going to put a door tag, and we're going to put a range of dates that we're going to be potentially accessing your property.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Let's see. So we've kind of talked about this, but I just want to be clear. Will Holy Cross be providing internet services to our members?
So at this time, Holy Cross will not be providing internet service directly to the member.
Okay.
So we'll work through partnerships with service providers and then with our local government providers as they work through their other partners to help make sure that broadband service can be delivered to our members.
Awesome. Thank you. And what about, like we talked about on the map, our kind of core, what we think of as our core territory. But what about going down valley? Is that in the plan?
So down valley, referring to rifle, silt, parachute
Yes.
areas. Yep. So we do have some plans, but it's not in our initial 5-year plan.
Okay.
So we don't have any assets that are down in that area that are currently a priority 1. We have other methods of serving them, or they have kind of a less importance to our network. But we have built out for our phase, or priority 2 and our priority 3 assets, of which we do have in the rifle, silt areas and parachute areas as well. So potentially we could, through other phases of those projects, help expand fiber into some of those areas as well. And I know that Garfield County is doing some efforts through a wireless project that they have. They're also tying into some of the CDOT fiber potentially to help improve connectivity in rifle in some of those communities. And so hopefully we can partner with somebody like that to help improve us when we get to that point.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's talk money.
Okay.
Will this project increase our rates?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And I meant to address it earlier because I'm not a member, but my in-laws are. And I think about everything I do impacts their electricity bill. And how does this project impact their electricity bill? And really the best thing to say is we have a really good planning process here on how we do our budgets, specifically our capital budgets. And this project is this project is budgeted within our normal process,
Okay.
so it won't result in an increase in the rates directly. So, and then we have the piece about the partnership. So the kind of follow-up question that comes to that is, well, as a member, am I paying to allow these partnerships to happen? And so what we've worked to do is identify what the incremental costs are. So any costs that it would cost us to put the fiber in, and then any additional costs it would cost to work with a partner. And then those partners are going to pay for those costs through their lease rates on that fiber.
Okay, so we just kind of pass through those costs.
Yeah. So essentially, this should not result in an increase in rate to any of our members.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. How did you decide what the priority list was?
So we hired a consulting firm, HR Green. They're helping us on our project now. And they did a process where they interviewed our engineering departments, some folks from our power supply group, our IT department, and they helped us to identify and prioritize these communication sites based on importance to how we operate the system.
So it was kind of a need for the communications.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. What happens if in the future, when technology grows and HCE does not have enough strands? Trick question.
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, I think one way to answer that is you can actually take a single strand of fiber, and then you can use electronics even today, and you can send multiple signals down that strand. So we won't be doing that on day one.
Okay.
So we'll be using the strand by itself. If we get to a point where we've used all the strands and we need more capacity, we could start looking at the technology to send multiple streams of data or streams of light down that piece of glass.
Yeah, that's just magic.
Yeah, it's magic.
I don't know what that means.
If I would have said the answer is magic, it might have seemed a little weirder though. So I had to try to confuse everybody first.
Okay. But thinking about, like, for our members, you don't anticipate that we would have to go and ask for some of that fiber back from our partners.
No. I don't foresee us needing I think the other way to answer that question is when we planned out for our own capacity, we didn't just think of what's our need today and say, oh, our need today is 2 strands of fiber, so I'm building 2 strands of fiber. We tried to build enough of a buffer in that we would have strands of fiber essentially for the life of the fiber.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all of the questions, or all the time we have for questions right now. If you have additional questions, you could reach out to Bob here at our offices, which he loves me offering that up, or put additional comments and we'll get back to you on the Facebook Live. So first, I want to thank you for putting up with me and for being so patient and explaining things to me. I really appreciate you being here, and this was a lot of fun to do with you.
Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about broadband and help our members get informed about it a little bit, answer their questions, and just the chance to be a part of Kilowatt Talks. What a fun thing to do.
It's a great thing. So I want to thank all of you for attending and being with us tonight so that we could learn more about broadband and our fiber project. As I mentioned before, we do have a comments open both on the website and on our Facebook page. So if you want to tell us what you thought of tonight, if you're kind, we'd love to hear from you. And then I want to encourage you to watch for more information about our next Kilowatt Talks, and then a Bratz Kilowatt event over in the Roaring Fork Valley in November. So once again, I am not Bryan Hannegan. I often wish I was.
I'm also not Bryan Hannegan, just to make that clear.
But we thank you for being with us and hope to see you again soon.